Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Timothy Lee, and I'm a research analyst at Red Cloud Securities. I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on gold and copper exploration and development today. We will hear from Melanie Leighton, the CEO of Titan Minerals Limited. During today's webinar, she will provide an overview and outlook. Then we will take questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we will get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first we need to discuss some fine print. During this Titan webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to the company's forward-looking statements disclosure outlined in the Titan corporate presentation, and that can be found on the company's website, titanminerals.com.au. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors, and participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures pertaining to Titan. So we have Titan presenting today. The company is focused on mineral exploration in Ecuador, where it has a portfolio of high-quality projects with both epithermal gold and targets and porphyry copper targets. The company is TTM on the ASX. With that, I now turn it over to Melanie to update our audience on the company.
Thanks very much, Timothy. Really looking forward to providing an update today. And welcome, everyone. I will just skip past the disclaimer and forward-looking statements. As Timothy just referred to, all of this is available on our website. A summary of Titan and really the investment summary and where our assets are. As mentioned earlier, we have 4 large-scale projects in the south of Ecuador. Just down here, you can see them. We also have at our Dynasty project, our flagship project, an established large-scale resource. 3.12 million ounces of gold, 22 million ounces of silver was published in July this year. So a substantial resource of gold there, but also our other projects at various stages of exploration with a number of epithermal gold and copper porphyry targets as well. We find Ecuador to be a fantastic place to explore and operate. I liken it to something like Australia or Chile some 30 or 40 years ago. Huge amount of exploration opportunity, but a relatively immature industry. And I guess that represents quite a large opportunity for us with the portfolio of projects that we do have 100% held. The board and technical capability of Titan Minerals, I believe, is the best for these projects. And we certainly are embracing very strong corporate governance and technical capability and oversight at our projects, and certainly technical excellence in terms of exploration standards, second to none, I would like to think. The projects themselves, I believe, are world-class. They are in the right terrain. We're certainly implementing all the systematic exploration techniques that you would like to see for these types of projects, 48-element geochemistry, geophysics, spectral data, so acquisition of all systematic data sets to really unlock the value of these projects. And we really do feel that there is significant discovery for large-scale or tier 1 projects and resources. And certainly a big focus for Titan has been to really gain that social license to operate. And we do have a very strong community relationship and support from the community, certainly a lot of engagement initiatives, social initiatives, and we always employ locally wherever possible. So, Titan, we like to believe, is doing things differently and certainly best practice. A little more about the board. Myself, I'm a geologist. I joined the company earlier this year after consulting for probably close to 9 months last year. A lot of experience in gold and base metal exploration and development, certainly a lot of experience within Australia, but also spent some 10 years working for Hot Chili Limited, and another ASX listed company, exploring and developing copper projects in the Region 3 coastal range of Chile. So certainly I'm no stranger to these types of projects, the exploration and the development studies, and obviously mining related activities. So I feel that I certainly am well credentialed to be leading this company, particularly at this stage of exploration and development and growth. Peter Cook, also a geologist, a mineral economist, certainly a number of very successful transactions over the years, and has certainly made a number of transformational deals. I think buying unloved assets, really adding value through good exploration and development, and then I guess realizing the value and selling those assets at a much higher value. So has created a lot of wealth for himself, but a lot of shareholders over the years as well. Look, I won't go into too much detail onto the other directors, but certainly very tight board, extremely good corporate governance. A little on the capital structure over here. This is slightly out of date. Last week we did undertake a capital raise, so certainly we're refreshed, and those new shares will be issued late this week, early next week, and we'll be sitting with around $7 million in cash and receivables at that point, and certainly we'll be able to direct that to exploration and development across our projects in Ecuador. Analyst coverage, Red Cloud and Canaccord out of Australia. The team, a little more about the team, and I think this is so important for us. And this is our team that are on the ground in Ecuador. Pablo Morelli, our exploration manager, a Chilean geologist, more than 15 years experience in these types of mineral systems, epithermal and porphyry systems, has worked for Barrick and most recently at the Cerro Casal and Caspiche copper gold projects in Chile. So again, no stranger to these types of projects and the work that needs to be done, and is certainly leading the team in their technical excellence. Ceci, she is our CSR manager, and she is the driving force behind our strategy to really engage with the community, and it certainly is unlocking a lot of value for both the communities and for us in the exploration that we're doing, and we're seeing great success by partnering with the communities and through our exploration and other social initiatives. I won't go into too much detail under the rest of the team, but just like to point out that certainly very well credentialed and very well managed team on the ground in Ecuador. And another, I guess, a key consultant to mention, Mike Skeed, spent some 12 months in Ecuador a year or so back, and certainly set up all of the systems, built out the team. So when I joined as CEO earlier this year, it was a pleasure to join because the team was very well established, systems very well established. So certainly it's just something that I'm able to continue on with and add value wherever possible. Why Ecuador? Look, I touched on it before. The government really is very supportive to responsible mining in Ecuador, and they do consider it, critical as part of their future and the economic revitalisation of Ecuador. So we're seeing a lot of support from the government at all levels, and certainly we're fostering some really strong relationships, both at local, state, and federal level within Ecuador. The elections are due in August, on the 20th of August, and my understanding is that all viable parties recognise mining as an economic imperative. I feel like there are probably one or two that are not as positive around mining, but I think the large, the view from, the population of Ecuador is that they do see mining as a big part of their future. The Fraser Institute annual survey of mining companies has also recognised Ecuador is an attractive place for mining investment, and it's certainly progressed up the ranks from 45 up to 69 from 2015 through to 2022. So certainly has leaped up there and has in fact, jumped over some of its other South American counterparts. Ecuador has some very low tax rates, low inflation. It has the US dollar. So, that economy means that we're not exposed to the same levels of inflation as some of the other South American countries. And we're also experienced and enjoyed, fast permitting, the fastest permitting, in fact, in Latin America. So mining and exploration, as I said, is really contributing significantly to the Ecuadorian economy, particularly with the advent of the Fruta del Norte and the Mirador mines coming online and now in full production. Some $2+ billion of revenue or GDP into Ecuador's coffers last year. So certainly a big part of their future and a big opportunity for the government. A little zoom in on our projects, and I guess to also highlight some of the other companies in the area. I mean, the majors are certainly moving in. You can see Newmont, Newcrest, Lundin, SolGold, a number of others. These are our projects here. The Linderos Dynasty is where our resource is at. Copper Duke project and Copperfield project. They're all within around 60 kilometres of each other and surrounded by pedigree operators and projects. You know, the Cangreos project owned by Lumina Gold, just to the north here. Back in May, Wheaton Precious acquired a $300 million stream of the gold at this project. So you can certainly see the large amount of investment and foreign investment that is coming into Ecuador. And I guess it sort of really gives significant endorsement to exploration and investment into Ecuador, and certainly, I guess, a critical mass of the majors and these strategics moving in. Certainly, I think de-risks the jurisdiction on a whole for us to benefit from it, as are other explorers and miners in the jurisdiction. A little more about the projects. As I mentioned, they're all 100% held large-scale projects. The Dynasty Gold project is our flagship project, 139 square kilometres, has a substantial mineral resource, 3.12 million ounces of gold, 22 million ounces of silver, and that's sitting within a 9-kilometre epithermal gold corridor. And there's certainly potential also that project to grow those resources considerably, both in the epithermal system, but there's also porphyry opportunities at the Dynasty project as well. Linderos, again, another large-scale project, 100% held, has both porphyry copper and epithermal gold and silver systems. Both are confirmed by drilling and certainly a pipeline of, some 20 exploration targets that we see at the Linderos project. Copper Duke, another large-scale project, 100% held. We believe that this really is, represents elephant country, and it has got all the hallmarks of, really quite a large-scale porphyry copper system from surface. There's a 9-kilometre geophysical anomaly paired with surface geochemical anomaly with coincident copper, gold, molybdenum. So certainly a very large project with, a large porphyry potential, and our team is honing in on the best parts, I guess, to drill with further surface mapping and geochemical sampling underway at the moment. Copperfield, I guess, for us is the least advanced. We haven't dedicated a lot of time to this project because we do have our hands full with our other projects, but it is still an early stage exploration project. Certainly has both epithermal and base metal, so gold and base metal systems that are evident from regional geochemistry. So certainly an opportunity also at this project. As I mentioned earlier, look, our CSR initiatives, they really are at the forefront of our exploration strategy, and we really are receiving excellent support and community engagement through, social initiatives and local employment, and really seeing fantastic, license to operate in our areas of our projects. And the strategy of Titan really is to collect systematic geological data sets, overlay them together to identify the best parts of the project to drill. So certainly a lot of thought and consideration goes into our exploration and the way that we go about our business. A little more detail on the Dynasty Gold project. As I mentioned, a very large resource. I won't say the number again. The resource is broken up over 4 main areas. So the Cerro Verde area here contains the bulk of the mineral resource, and that's about 1.9 million ounces of gold, 12 million ounces of silver. Iguana, again, has a considerable amount of gold and silver. And Trapachillo Papel, relatively lower, I guess, in terms of the tonnes, but the grades that we see at these parts of the project are quite a bit higher. So the global grade of the resource, it's 43.5 million tonnes at 2.23 grams per tonne gold, 15.7 grams per tonne silver. So certainly a very good grade overall for the project. And this mineralisation does extend from surface. In fact, more than half of the resources are contained within the top 100 metres from surface. And that represents a little over 1.6 million ounces of gold, extending directly from surface. But I guess the real opportunity that we see is at this northeastern part of the project here. We see grades at Trapachillo of 3.8 grams per tonne and at Papayal at 4.5 grams per tonne, and that really is extending from surface. And I guess you can also see topographically, this higher grade mineralisation largely sits on the crest of these hills here, which represents a fantastic opportunity in terms of strip ratio, and also an opportunity to potentially add it in and extract that ore from an underground scenario, so much lower impact and lower cost method of mining. So certainly we see the bulk open pit style of mineralisation here at Cerro Verde, but potentially an underground high grade opportunity at this northeastern part of the project here. And we do see significant potential to grow the resources. The deepest part of the project in terms of drilling is around 350 metres from surface down here at the Brecha Comanche part of the project at Cerro Verde. The rest of the project has been drilled to a maximum depth of around 200 metres to 250 metres in the most, in other parts of the project. And this represents a real opportunity for us because our recent drilling completed at Brecha Comanche demonstrated that mineralisation is continuous down to 350 metres, and really quite good widths and grades are seen there. And it gives us really good confidence to test that depth potential across the rest of the project, because there's nothing to say that it doesn't continue at depth. And in fact, we believe that it does continue at depth. So we feel that there's a significant potential to grow the resource and upgrade the classification with, moderate amounts of drilling and geological work streams. And that will be a focus for us in the coming 6 to 12 months. I touched on this before. Cerro Verde in the southwest certainly does look to be a bulk open pit mining scenario. There was a resource previously done here at Dynasty. It was an NI 43101 resource that was published back in 2019, I think. And that very much contemplated a high grade scenario. It used a 2 gram reporting cutoff, and it contemplated toll treating the ore at an offsite process facility. So certainly the lower grades weren't captured within that resource. And now that we have captured the lower grade, but yet quite substantial alteration mineralisation, alteration halo, it's really, I guess, bulked out the tonnes and the ounces available at the project. And engineering optimisation studies that we've completed, albeit preliminary, with assumptions, around metallurgy and costs and costs and pricing, it really does indicate that the economics are really quite robust, and that optimization tells us that an open pit really wants to go down and take all of this mineralization in an open pit scenario. So certainly from an economics point of view, really good potential there. And like I said, we also see the potential to extend at depth across the entire project. So bulk open pit mining scenario here, 28.8 million tonnes at 2.08 grams per tonne gold, 13 grams silver. And then we see the high grade opportunity here at Trapachillo and Papayal. So that will be a focus for us. And certainly our geologists are on the ground at the moment, mapping and trenching in this area right now. There's only a very small amount of drilling that's been directed to this part of the project, and that's largely due to lack of access previously. And also there's a small amount of, vegetation and soil cover at this part of the project as well, which particularly in the valleys has hidden what the potential might be. So we certainly see that there's both lateral and depth extensions at this part of the project, and we're certainly going to be focusing on exploring that at surface with our mapping and geochemical programs, but then also follow-up drilling, and we're looking to start that in September. Next steps really for Dynasty is about determining, what is the ultimate size of this mineral system? What do those lateral and vertical extensions look like over that 9 kilometre of strike? And then it's about right sizing and, doing those development studies and optimizing what type of process, facility and, throughputs and the like that you would be looking at for this type of a project. So it's all about what size is the system, resource growth for us in terms of adding both bulk tonnes and high grade ounces. So a large focus for us will be drilling at Papayal and Trapachillo prospects. And look, there's a number of veins that have been exposed, high grade veins with high gold to silver ratios, and textures typical of low sulfidation epithermal gold. And, you know, we're using the analogy of the Fruta del Norte deposit, and we very much aspire to, I guess, find the types of grades and the style of the widths of mineralization that they've found at their project there. And I think with good exploration, there's an opportunity for us to find those types of grades as well. So it's about continuous improvement for us. It's about collecting the data sets. It's about improving our 3D geological and structural model and to identify these new targets. And then it's about optimizing the drilling into those targets. Gradient array IP survey will be commenced in the coming month or two, and that's really to identify, you know, new resource growth opportunities. You know, where we can't see from surface, you know, the veins. There certainly is opportunity that that there is a lot of other veins that haven't yet been identified, and so we hope to find them through this gradient array IP survey, and that will be under, you know, the vegetation and the soil cover that I was just talking about earlier. And then it's about those feasibility studies. It's about getting some of those baseline work streams underway to understand what the potential economics of this project might be. The Linderos project is our next most advanced project. Again, a large-scale project. As you can see, it's close to 12 kilometres by 10 kilometres. Most of the work historically and even by Titan has been directed to the Copper Ridge porphyry prospect and the Meseta epithermal gold prospect. So as I said earlier, both have been drilled and confirmed. There's definitely copper porphyry mineralisation extending from very shallow depths here at Copper Ridge, and there is epithermal gold, silver and base metal mineralisation from at Meseta here, again extending from very shallow depths. So I guess outside of that, a number of other targets that you can see here in you know, the red polygons. Some are more conceptual in nature and require further reconnaissance and ground truthing work, and others have multiple data sets in terms of geophysics and geochemistry, and some mapping that have confirmed, you know, their validity and the fact that there is more work warranted at these other prospects. So certainly a lot more work for us to do at the Linderos project, but we see it as, you know, a great opportunity. Just zooming in a little bit more on the Copper Ridge porphyry prospect and the Meseta gold prospect, we're looking at a long section here from south to north. So this is the Copper Ridge porphyry. Just some of the drilling that we put into it last year. We drilled 8 holes for around 4,000 metres of drilling. Sorry, we tested it down to about 500 metres vertical, and basically that drilling demonstrated that you know, there was very well mineralised porphyry from surface. Our best intersection was 308 metres at 0.4% copper equivalent in this hole here, hole 3, and within that we also saw 76 metres at 0.5% copper equivalent within I guess a higher grade porphyry phase. So what that tells us is that there is certainly, you know, higher grade porphyry within this Copper Ridge porphyry system. And we do see relict biotite and potassic alteration. We do see the style of veining and the density of veining that that you would like to see in these types of porphyry systems. So our geologists have been understanding the porphyry phases, mapping them with obviously logging and geochemistry, and then also tying that in with surface mapping that they've also been undertaking, surface mapping and trenching. So we're using the geochemistry from the trenching and downhole to tie in to create a 3-dimensional geological model for Copper Ridge. And we've also just recently completed an IP survey at Copper Ridge, and I'm just waiting on the final results from that. But that will give us another dimension and an added layer of information to help target the next campaign of drilling. And I guess an analogy that I like to use for Copper Ridge would be SolGold's Alpala deposit at their Cascabel project. They have similar style of mineralisation and similar density of veining, although their high-grade portion of the deposit doesn't start until about 600 or 700 metres vertical. They saw some quite weak mineralisation, in fact, at surface. And it wasn't until they drilled deeper that they identified that there was that higher grade porphyry mineralisation within their system. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to test Copper Ridge, both at depth and laterally as well. So that certainly will be the focus for us. Meseta, just to the north, less than 500 metres between the two deposits. We drilled 14 holes into Meseta last year and identified some really quite wide, high-grade gold and silver and base metal mineralisation. The best holes were hole 10 and 12. Hole 12 intersected 4.88 metres, grading 12.87 grams per tonne and 6 grams per tonne silver, and that was just from 41 metres down hole. Hole 10 intersected 7.22 metres, grading 13.77 grams per tonne gold and 12.9 grams per tonne silver from 66 metres. So clearly very high grades, very good widths from very shallow depths. So significant opportunity, with only a handful of holes drilled into Meseta, which is roughly about 1 kilometre long in strike. Some significant opportunity there to grow, that part of the project and understand what the scale of that Meseta epithermal gold system might be like. So certainly a second phase of drilling will be directed there in the coming months. Copper Duke, I guess our last but not least in terms of the projects that we're exploring, it does have tier 1 porphyry potential and it's supported by multiple data sets. You can see in this image on the right the magnetics overlain by surface geochemistry. So we're seeing copper rock chips here, and everything that's magenta here in the rock chips is grading greater than 0.1% copper or 1000 ppm copper. So clearly significant concentrations of copper here in the central part of the project, and also multiple intersecting structures here, which I guess indicates, this project is structurally complex, and we see a number of different outcropping porphyry phases and targets. We see epithermal and we see breccia systems. We see skarn mineralisation here. So there's so many different mineral systems that we've identified at Copper Duke, and amazingly only 4 drill holes ever drilled at this project. And so our geologists, what we've been doing since we've had the projects for a little over 2 years is really about, as I've said many times before, collecting that systematic data. It's about, we've collected regional soil geochemistry, we've collected the magnetics that you see on this image here. We've been focused on detailed mapping, and now also into the campaign of trenching. And as you can see from the image at the bottom of the slide here, this is one of our trenches that we've put into the El Cuarto prospect in the middle of the project here. And as you can see from the density of veining, the copper oxide and iron oxide mineralisation at surface, it just tells you that this is clearly a very fertile mineral system and has seen, a large amount of fluid flow, and, gives really good indication that it will be a fertile porphyry system. So our geologists, I guess, are vectoring in on the best parts of the project to drill, and we have all of the drilling permits now in place. And we would like to be drilling this late this year or early next year. But the focus for us at this point in time really is about growing the resources at Dynasty. So I guess for shareholders, they have the tangible value of Dynasty and the resource space that we've grown there. But Copper Duke really represents that blue sky opportunity. And I guess the last point on this slide is that we are progressing negotiations and discussions with potential strategic partners for Copper Duke. It is a large project, and we do believe it does have a large scale, copper porphyry deposit there. And a project like that clearly would benefit from a big brother, and would certainly endorse the work that we're doing there. So, certainly a lot of negotiations and discussions happening, and we feel that we're not too far off securing a partner for this project. A little more about Titan and, the exploration and the development. The work that we're doing really, fundamentally, we're about respect for the environment, respect for the communities. We're about testing new concepts. We're about big ideas. We're about, that's blue sky opportunity. And really, it's about responsible investment and, making every cent count. It's about collecting all of the right geological data sets and knowing where we want to drill before we drill those holes. So that certainly is our strategy. Responsible exploration is, at the fore of our strategy. And we really do have a commitment to to transparency and open communication with the communities within which we operate, educating the communities and providing employment and certainly inclusion. There is certainly consultation at every step of the way in terms of exploration and development of our projects, and certainly we would like to see longer term benefits for the communities, and we're not thinking of just the now, we're certainly thinking long term for our projects. Definitely employing locally, and we have a number of field technicians and also geologists at our projects that are from the local towns and communities. And we have really seen significant improvement in land access since we acquired the projects in late 2020, early 21. And really it's due to the dedicated efforts of our CSR team. And you can see Ceci, who I spoke about earlier, she's here. She's definitely a big part of the community, and has been a driving force for us. Some of the initiatives in terms of social initiatives that for us are a small cost in terms of investment, but for the communities it makes a big difference. So some examples in some of the photos here, repairing water treatment plants, donating grains and crops to local farmers, supplying medicines and vitamins, providing materials for maintaining town halls, churches and the like. And just recently, this was probably about 2 weeks ago, the photo on the right here shows a pro-mining rally, and the community have come out in support for Titan Minerals and the work that we're doing there. So we're seeing a real change, I guess, in the communities and their attitudes. And, a lot of people who may previously have been opposed to mining have certainly started to change their attitude, and they can see the benefits that are generated by Titan's presence and through the generation of jobs and the social initiatives that I just touched on. That concludes the presentation. I've got a few more technical slides at the end if required. I see I have a few questions.
Yes, thank you, Melanie, for the very informative presentation. As you mentioned, we'll now move to the Q&A portion of the webinar. A reminder to everyone on the line that you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. And we already do have several questions here. Maybe we can start with a question about Ecuador. Obviously, you've been focused on this particular geographic area for thus far. Do you have any interest in seeking projects in new districts or elsewhere along the Andes?
Look, we wouldn't rule it out. All I would say is that these projects are really large, and we're really sinking our teeth into them, and it's probably consuming all of our resources at this point in time. And the region where we are operating, we're finding to be, like I said, extremely mining or mineral exploration friendly. And that's been a big investment for us, is about being there and being a part of the community. And that's taken several years to establish that. So, that represents a real value for us at this point in time. And so I wouldn't say no, but I think that we've certainly got our hands full with our projects and a lot of work to be done there yet.
Great. One question here, and you had mentioned during the presentation, potentially bringing in strategic partners for projects. Is there any, can you give us any idea on timeline or of a potential deal?
Look, I probably can't speak too publicly about it. Certainly negotiations are in train, or discussions, I would say. We have hosted a number of site visits, particularly over the last 6 months, and seem to be gaining even further traction, and particularly since putting out the Dynasty resource, have also encountered quite a bit of inbound interest from, I guess, mining companies and strategics, offtake partners and the like. So certainly a lot of potential partners out there, but I guess it's about finding the right partner, because clearly it's a marriage. But I guess the contemplation would be that we would be undertaking the exploration ourselves. We would be managing that. And the overwhelming feedback that we've had from the site visits that we've hosted is that, technically the visitors have been extremely impressed. both with the merit of the projects, but in particular with our technical capability and the work that we're doing there. So we've had some really positive feedback in that regard. So that's what we would be looking to, retain management if it was a joint venture earn-in arrangement.
Great. And one question along a similar vein, but asking specifically, what is the strategy on the copper projects? Obviously, copper porphyries are quite sizable, can be expensive to drill. Do you plan to continue drilling on the copper, or would you look for strategic partners specifically on that side?
Well, certainly, I think I've probably, hopefully made it relatively clear. Dynasty for us is our flagship project with an established resource of 3 million ounces of gold. It's a very solid foundation for us to continue to grow upon, to grow those resources, to de-risk that project and to focus on that at this point in time. That being said, we have got a team of projects at each of our team of geologists at each of our projects. So we are certainly continuing to improve our understanding both at the Linderos and the Copper Duke projects. We will look to direct some more drilling into the Linderos project with the Copper Ridge porphyry. Copper Duke, I think our preference at this stage is to wait for a strategic partner before we launch into drilling it. That being said, if that partner doesn't come around in a commercial timeframe that we're looking at, we might well drill it ourselves.
Okay, great. And one question that I often ask, in fact, but someone asked here, is long-term strategy of the company. Obviously you have a sizable resource already. Would you look to eventually evolve into a mine operator, or would you look to, drill up and develop a project and look to potentially sell to a producer?
Yeah, look, I think you have to look at the company's skill set, and at this point in time, we are about exploration and development, and that probably is the skill set, and that's where we can really add value, I think, to these projects. And you've got to think projects of this scale, you don't explore them and develop them and start mining them within a 6-month time frame. These big projects are often a 10-year time frame, and I'm not talking about Dynasty so much because we've already done a lot of that work and already established a significant resource there. But the other projects, the copper projects, particularly the large-scale porphyry projects, if you look at the statistics, most of those projects from discovery to commencement of mining, it's often a 10+ year journey. So we're a relatively early stage in that journey, I would say, for our project, for our copper projects. Dynasty is a different case, and certainly I could see that coming into production earlier.
Great.
And sorry, just to finish that question. So right now the skill set is exploration and development, but there's nothing to say that we couldn't, upskill, add to the board and the technical capability to take on that, that mining role as well. That's definitely a part of the strategy going forward.
Great. We have a couple of questions more on the stock and listing side of things, but one, does the company have plans for a North American listing, or specifically they ask about a US listing?
Well, yeah, definitely North American, and I think our thought process was TSX listing. North American, sure. New York, I don't know if we're big enough for that at this stage. But we do understand that our projects are probably more of a natural fit for the TSX and the North American market. The same time zone, same kind of, appetite for those types of projects. So we're probably a little bit alone, I guess, on the ASX at this point in time. And look, we do recognise that probably the TSX is the place for us to be, and certainly we would be contemplating that, probably in the next 12 months or so.
Great. And one question, would you potentially look to do a share rollback to bring down the number of shares outstanding?
Yeah, and I think, again, that would probably come at the same time as a TSX listing or some other kind of milestone or catalyst. Generally, you can't just sort of roll back shares, and normally you would combine it with, I guess, some positive news. And, I think that we would, at some point in time in the coming 12 months, it would be maybe a strategic investment, a TSX listing, and a rollback of shares. in a perfect world.
Great. And one question here, I'm going to kind of rephrase it a little bit, but obviously market conditions are challenging overall for juniors. And, we see a lot of value here per ounce in the ground and even with your other exploration projects. Obviously, you just completed a capital raise. Any thoughts on, could we have potentially done that at a higher price or we certainly would.
We would love to have, obviously we would love to have done it at a higher price. It is a really challenging market right now, particularly for junior explorers in the gold and base metal space. If we had lithium or rare earth projects, maybe things would have been different. But yeah, I guess it depends. I mean, investment, like I said, we're ASX listed and maybe investors largely on the ASX are less aware of Ecuador and less aware of the opportunity, and maybe that's why that TSX listing and that marketing more into North America, I think is it's really important for us because we clearly are undervalued, and I agree that the most recent raising was done at a lower price than what we would have liked. So yeah, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And perhaps one other, you had already spoken, we had a few questions about, how long would it take to get to production, and so on. And, you had mentioned, and it is typical in the industry that it's not a speedy process necessarily from initial discovery through to production.
No, that's right. I guess, like I said, for Dynasty, it could be much earlier stage. In Dynasty, we do have a small scale mining license there. So we are able to extract a certain amount per annum, but then you'd be looking at a toll treating scenario. I just don't think you'd be getting the best value from the project if you were to, operate that way and sort of, extract the best part and then sort of sell it off, not get the most value out of it. So I think the longer term strategy would be to develop the project standalone, to understand and grow that resource base into something really quite meaningful, and to be a standalone project. And that's why I keep referring back to the, Lundin Gold and their Fruta del Norte project, because, they did the right thing. They've developed it. They bought it at a certain stage, but they grew the resources and they developed it, and they are certainly reaping the rewards of that right now. So, I'd like to do things the same way that they have done it. Great.
Well, I think that's all the questions that we had. Maybe I'd ask one question here just to kind of review. You did have one of the final slides there, but just to review, what news might we expect to have in the coming weeks and months from Titan?
Yeah, definitely coming weeks and months. The focus for us is Dynasty. The geologists are on the ground right now, mapping and trenching at Papayal and Trapachillo. So certainly there'll be some trenching data and some soil geochemistry. And then beyond that, we're looking to commence drilling next month, so September. And so then there will be certainly drill results flowing from there until the end of the year. And the intent with that drilling would be that's resource growth drilling. And we would see a resource upgrade, I would like to think, late this year or early next year off the back of that drilling. And then outside of Dynasty Linderos, we would like to direct some drilling to Copper Ridge to understand what that porphyry might be and the scale of it, and also to target the higher tenor mineralization. And then Meseta, I think, is a real opportunity for us to grow that deposit there and potentially put out a maiden resource both for Meseta and Copper Ridge, again, late this year, early next year. And I think that that's certainly doable with a moderate amount of drilling. And then you need to think, Dynasty, if you're investing in the capital as a standalone operation there in terms of process plant and infrastructure, the Linderos project's 20 kilometres away. So any, gold, resource that you find at Linderos could certainly benefit from that sunk capital, at Dynasty. So I kind of think about it like that any of these other epithermal prospects that we have at our other projects could certainly be trucked and treated at a central, process facility for all of our projects.
Okay, great. And maybe I'd circle back. We did have one more question come in, and it's kind of along the same theme that we discussed about timelines. But if I guess looking specifically at the Dynasty project, what would be potential milestones looking maybe further forward for that project to advance through development?
Yeah, look, I think it would be continued resource growth drilling, and then resource upgrades, and then development studies to go hand in hand with that. So I would think in the coming 6 months, I would like to see a resource upgrade circa 500,000 ounces, and I would like to see a PEA close to completion within that time frame. And then I think really for us to reach that critical mass, which I think would be circa 5 to 6 million ounces at Dynasty, so to continue doing that drilling and then resource growth. So I'd like to think by the end of 24, we potentially have reached that critical mass of resources, and would be well on our way to having a pre-feasibility study completed for the project. So that's what I'd be looking at longer term.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank Melanie again for presenting today, and thank you everyone on the line for tuning in. Reminder that Red Cloud Securities will be back tomorrow afternoon when our webinar series continues with Blue Sky Uranium presenting Wednesday, August 9th at 2 p.m. Toronto time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, Timothy.